Hello there, welcome back to the High Elves Abridged, where in the previous part we did a couple of defences of our little goblin cave and held on to it, and I spent a while trying to take a new settlement in the west without recruiting any units, which worked out in the end. And we also had a defence of Rivendell when the goblins showed up, and that worked out in the end too. And we're going to start this one off with another defence of Rivendell, because another not particularly strong goblin force came over to attack. It's a balanced engagement, and again we're going to be super outnumbered, but we have two advantages. Their wargs are going to be pretty useless in this situation. Their general's unit will just wait at the back of the map like it did last time and not participate. And we can thin them out a little bit with archers before the battle starts. This is worse than you would hope it would be because of how the walls kind of mess things up, which I talked about last time. But basically, we grabbed a few kills, and then eventually, once the enemy get through the gate, then things start. Now we can shoot into the enemy's flank and pick up the kills at a bit of a faster rate. Plus, the wardens with their shield wall tended not to die, especially against the wargs, and not very much against the enemy's low-quality trash infantry. Elrond with the Gil-galad company, well, he's going to be pretty much invincible in this melee. Well, actually, he just took a loss, so he's nearly invincible. He was invincible enough for us to get to this point. We killed most of them, the remainder routed, and that was almost that. They had two more units to kill, these overseers standing outside who were some kind of buffing unit. We killed all but one of them. The final guy in their unit proved to be quite invincible. Here he was, defiantly standing on the road with his back to us. We rained arrows on him. I was hoping that he would just die and this wouldn't be a massive waste of ammunition. So far, not the case. We used tons of arrows shooting at this guy. He can tank them pretty good. He lets out a few sing-songs and then eventually dies. Then we just need to finish off the next unit. Now, like in the last battle, the unit they left behind decides to run in. But we're not going to take any chances, not going to let them go and cheekily have the capture point. Instead, I put the wardens in the gateway so the enemy just couldn't walk past. Then we've got Gil-galad's company shooting into the back of them, and that's enough to rout things. Had to keep playing because we haven't hit the 85% kills quota to make the enemy army totally die. Although they are going to survive because I ransomed them back afterwards, so a few survivors will go back to Goblin land. Pretty happy to do the ransoming. Since I need the money at this stage, I can basically get paid to constantly kill these goblin armies if they just keep coming. And as we saw there, another one is on the way. My actual plan, by the way, right now, is just to wait around and get some more buildings and units going. Both of those things take a while, so I'm mainly just ending turns. The other thing I thought, though, is that we could stop defending Zag-Kalar, because I was looking at it and just sort of thought, wait a second, this place makes us like 400 money a turn, but we're paying a lot more than that if you add up the income, or the expenditure, sorry, on all of the stuff we have to defend it, especially when you consider that realistically we need more stuff there to defend it. We've just got some scraps here. So I thought, let's just not even defend it. I'll pull everything back out and go to Imladris and just sit there. This gives us a couple of advantages. Not only is it easier to defend, but stuff in Imladris gets free upkeep, so we'll save more money that way. And we can Scorched Earth Zag-Kalar to make some money right now, and just make sure that if the goblins take it back, it's barely worth anything to them either. So here we are in the next turn. We made it back, looks like the goblins are closing in on Imladris, but now we have something of a defending force, and we can make things even better by feeding the smaller units into the big ones here, meaning that all of our regular troops are now being paid for by wherever the free upkeep money comes from. So that's good, we're going to make some profits off this. At the start of the next turn we complete the mission to send a diplomat to go stand in a certain point, and the result is it gives us two free generals. It says they're coming back from scouting and cavorting with the Dunedain. They're in two like random locations, so we need to bring them back in before we can use them. And they both do come with some Dunedain scouts as well, some horse archer units. So I'm going to bring them in, and eventually they will be added to our army, and we're going to have quite a substantial force once they're around, especially because I am recruiting stuff still. However, in the meantime, let's fight a battle, because the goblins ended up just sitting outside Imladris without besieging it, and I figured let's not wait for them to attack, let's just go out and kill them now, because I'm pretty sure we have a big advantage here. This is a bridge crossing battle, but we don't have to cross the bridge because, as I learned last time I played this mod, you can sort of half cross it, shoot some arrows, and then the enemy gets annoyed and crosses it themselves. So we quickly run back with Elrond here and prepare to do a bridge defense instead, which is easier. Across they come, and we can set up units to just kind of block them in here from multiple sides, and also get our archers to shoot into the enemy's blobs as well. Didn't do this terribly well. I should have got my second general here to be more at the front, since his losses don't really count. But this battle didn't last very long. We killed their captain early on, and then just as I was setting up to shoot into their flank, they basically just started mass routing. A couple of units routed, and that probably chain routes the rest. So the battle very quickly comes to an end. We only killed something like 20% of their force, so now it's just a mass slaughter time. We need to chase all of these goblins off the field and take them all prisoner. So here we are, a while later after doing that. We got enough, we just need the 85% to make the entire stack go away. Looks like we lost basically nothing and took down their army. That's the sort of result we like to see. I did try to ransom their troops back, but they didn't accept it, so they are just gone now. Zag-Kalar rebelled, by the way, so now nobody controls it, which is good for me. It's better that it's a rebel settlement than a goblin settlement. I noted there is a decent goblin army to our north walking about, so we may have to defend against them in the near future. And now we're just going to skip forward to when my stuff is ready. Our two new generals are here with their Dunedain scouts, and we've got added units recruited from Imladris, meaning we now have something resembling an army right here. This looks kind of decent. There is a half stack of goblin troops nearby, and you can see I moved to block a bridge to stop them from coming towards me, and we have just about broken even. We can just barely upkeep this army, so things are perfectly balanced right now. The goblins in their turn make several moves. They've got a few guys going for Imladris. They're not too much of a threat, even though we now have basically nothing defending there. They reinforce the army near my army, but don't attack with it. But most importantly, we see another big goblin army coming up from the south. They appear to be going for Zag-Kalar, just the rebel settlement. So that's not too much of an issue, but of course they'll probably go for Rivendell also. Looks like that other army we saw earlier is still hanging around to the north. So we're facing our general problem here. We can't really move out from this location, because if I go too far in any one direction, a big army might just show up and take Rivendell, so we need to play this pretty carefully. In the short term, we're almost certainly going to have to fight this southern army because it's got too close. So that means I need to take my army and first take out the troops right in front of us so we don't have to worry about them anymore, and then we'll turn back, get rid of the small group near Rivendell perhaps, and most importantly set up for some sort of big battle with their big army. But first, this one right here. Quite a lot of enemy stuff, but it's all bad in comparison to what we have. We're fighting right from the get-go with this one because our new generals have these Dunedain bodyguards, some archers that have good range and some flashy looking bows by the looks of things. But anyway, we start off shooting at these trolls and these overseers who are ahead of the army. The leading general in this army, by the way, could actually be firing, but I didn't notice. He defaults to having fire at will off for some reason. And I didn't check, so I always figured he just wasn't in range and he was different in some way. But no, this is just wasting chances to kill the enemy. At least things are still going to go our way, because I can deploy the horse archers against the trolls. That seems like a pretty good counter to them, because we can just run away if the trolls try to melee us. And because they're ahead of everything else, all of the other archers start raining arrows on these guys as well. And once we get through all of their hit points, don't remember how many there are, but eventually we can kill them, and in this case we are able to kill them before they reach our lines, so perhaps their most powerful unit is out of commission. Now our horse archers need to battle the enemy's crossbow wargs, a battle of mounted skirmishers, but we have numbers and probably quality on our side, so that's fine. Looks like an infantry battle is about to start, but again we do have better quality than them, so we can just let them run at us. I had this cav unit that I was going to send in for a big rear attack. They got distracted because the enemy wargs came to attack them, but we just took them down pretty fast. Wargs do suck in melee as far as I remember, so that makes sense. And then we charge on towards the back of the enemy. What I hoped was we would like plow through them or something and just push them away. Unfortunately the charge wasn't that good or impressive. At least it's going to lower the enemy's morale. And once they get some more things to fold in, we'll be in business. You can see they actually did outflank me on the left, but because our morale's too high, it just doesn't do anything, so we just outflank them even more from the right, and they will break under these circumstances. So their main infantry body is dealt with. This unit didn't engage, but everything can just start shooting arrows at them and get rid of them as a result, while the other guys chase all of the routing stuff off the field to get us a better result. Soon, here is the result. Looks like it went pretty well. The enemy lost virtually everything, we lost virtually nothing. Good stuff. But of course, even losing virtually nothing for the elves could potentially be a problem, because it's not like we're going to be able to get our troops back very easily, Imladris being the only place we can recruit them, and they're infrequently, so we still need to play things safe. Now after that, it's time to start going back and being more defensive again. First, I'm going to attack the army that was outside Imladris. They fall back and we attack again. Elrond's going to come out to help. Their army is really bad looking, so I was like, I'll just manually resolve this so we don't lose anything. Unfortunately, I messed up. I accidentally left Elrond on command by the AI mode. So he comes in behind the enemy army, and basically he just ran at them, along with the 2 or 3 sword masters he had in his army. That means I'm unable to draw the enemy across the bridge and destroy them, or try and just kill them at range or something to avoid casualties. Elrond's getting some guys killed for us, so I ended up charging across the bridge myself to try and minimize the losses. While this unit in particular is being targeted by our archers, and they're going to die. Luckily they're not trying to avoid dying, so that's great for us. By the time we have crossed the bridge, pretty much everything routed. Elrond's troops did do pretty well, but it's just the fact that we probably would have lost nothing if I had manually told them to stay back and just shoot arrows. Looks like we lost 18 guys instead. A couple of them were general's bodyguards, so it's a little bit better than that, but overall still a pretty good ratio. Now at the start of the next turn, the one ring is located. Usually that's not been very good for me. I've never actually managed to get the ring in this game, but this time it's not even that far away. It's plausible we could go down there and take wherever it was, and then get corrupted by the Ring of Power. That could be fun. In the meantime, need to deal with the situation locally. You can see the big goblin army is just besieging the rebel settlement, so that's okay. To some extent we want to just sort of wait, because they might die a little bit trying to fight the rebels and then we could finish them off. But I was more eager to do something fast, because I thought the more I wait around, the more stuff will just show up, so we kind of want to play this fast and loose now that we have an army in the field. With that in mind, we're going to start advancing towards the goblins. We can't attack them this turn, but I can hide on the road towards them. This means we might even ambush them if they break the siege and go for Imladris instead. As it turns out, they do break the siege, but they go in the other direction. I figured I'm probably going to have to just pursue them here, because we can't trust them to be walking off somewhere. If I decide to go north instead or something, they'll probably come back and kill us, so we're going to seek battle. I'm going to move a bit closer and again hide the army next to the road and just sort of see what they do. And you might have noticed earlier I also sent some of the troops back to defend Imladris, because now we're more than one turn away. We need to have something back there in case these small groups of goblins go and take it. Now what actually happens is the goblins walk past my ambush and it doesn't trigger, and then they go and attack the independent settlement again. Now I had a kind of Sun Tzu style moment. I was like, should I split this army in half? Because one thing we can do here is have half the army go and take that nearby goblin village, and have the other half go back to defend Imladris, and hopefully that would be enough that if the big goblin army went for Imladris, we'd have enough stuff there to stop it. That was the thought. But in the end, I went for something more generic. I just thought, well, let's just unite everything, reinforce from Imladris, and just go for the big decisive battle right now. We're going to throw the RNG out the window, potentially missing out on some reward by missing out on the risk. We'll try and kill all of these guys, and then go for that goblin village and see how things look after that. So it's a big one, but the good news is that looking at the enemy's troops, they're mostly bad. They've got a bunch of not very good goblins and orcs, and even worse snaggers. Even saw some zeros in the stats there, so that's a good sign. We are the attacker here, but we don't necessarily need to attack the enemy because we can use our ranged advantage. So to start with, we're just going to sit here on slightly a bad position actually on this hill and snipe towards the enemy. Annoyingly, they've got this tiny unit in front of their lines and they're absorbing all of the fire at will attacks. But they do then send forward skirmishes of their own, so we're going to have a ranged battle to start this thing. Obviously they'll have numbers on their side, Well, that said, that might not even be the case, because while they have tons of hunters and snagger skirmishers, we do have our horse archers who can shoot into the ranged battle as well. So we have quite a lot of ranged stuff. Plus, the enemy don't use their stuff perfectly efficiently. They do a lot of walking backwards and forwards while in the firing line. So they don't get that many attacks off on us. We do take some losses, but really not much at all. Eventually you can see I clearly get bored of the skirmishing because I order my melee troops to just charge into their skirmishers. We're just going to get this going. Our melee line is really small. We totally don't have enough stuff to match the enemy's line. So being outflanked is an issue. My only real counter to that is to have our horse archers on skirmish mode on the flanks and hope that they distract the enemy a little bit. Looks like we actually got their trash skirmishing stuff into melee, so that's probably going to go really well. I think there we're going to be fighting the 0 melee defense units with our swordmasters. We're somehow taking casualties, but hopefully that will be a good melee in the end. I'm also sending Cav around the back ready to look for more juicy targets. This melee goes on for a while because the snaggers, despite being pure trash, do seem to have some morale. We couldn't get rid of them as easily as I thought we could, so we kept gradually hacking our way through them. And our left flank is this big mess since, as I said, we don't have the melee troops to secure things. I'm trying to keep things under control with archers and horse archers, but we are being outflanked and we're going to face some rear attacks going on there. Luckily it's another case where the rear attacks don't matter all that much. Here's a rear attack done by me against these snagger troops. Obviously the horse archers don't have the best charging ability or the best melee ability, but it's probably still a lot better than this pure trash stuff we're fighting, so happy to have the horse archers just grind in the melee. Here's us being outflanked from behind, just trying to get some archers to shoot into that mess. That will maybe help. Meanwhile, we're outflanking the enemy from behind. We've got a mix of routed and unrouted pure trash, all stuff I'm willing to run into with these cav units, so trying to just kind of clear things up. This battle is a complete mess, but we are winning. The enemy's big center blob is dead, and really the main pockets of resistance are on the flanks where they were just chasing my skirmishers away and we just haven't killed them yet. So here we are a bit later with most stuff dead. Gonna try and use our archers to finish off the last remaining units who for whatever reason won't just rout on their own. I think we need a bit more army losses for things like goblins, where at this stage in the battle I feel like they should just get out of here. Well, I'm trying to appeal to lore that I don't know, so I probably shouldn't say that, but basically this enemy army is dead. Just took a while to really convince them of that, and then finally it's a clear victory. We lost 150 elves for killing 3,000 plus goblins. Whether that's a good trade, I don't know, because what is a good elf to goblin ratio? But basically that army is gone. After this we're actually stuck in the zone of control of this rebel settlement. I have a mission to take it, but I decided not to do that because I was more interested in counter-attacking now. I want to use our victory to move out and try to actually make some progress in this campaign. So you can see to the south there are two not particularly heavily defended goblin settlements. Also Moria is down there as well, that's the goblin capital, and they do have one decent settlement to the north of Imladris as well. We're going to ignore that for the time being. I would recruit more units to defend Imladris because it is vulnerable, but we're just not allowed because of the recruitment timers. That's going to be a theme going forwards actually, but I'll probably talk about that more in the next part when that became very inconvenient. As for our next turn, well, things got worse quickly because I discovered there are 2 stacks of goblin troops near that little village I was going to try and go for. So this whole kill their army and counterattack thing hasn't worked out because they just have 2 more armies, and I know they have 1 extra army up to the north as well. So things are more dangerous than I thought. In response, I went to stand on that bridge, figuring if they all gang up on me, we can hold them on the bridge. Meaning we can't make an attack though this turn. Did some pointless diplomacy just to annoy the goblins by the looks of things. Now here's the next turn. We can't see a lot of their stuff. We see a half stack going to the east, and probably one of the 2 stacks we saw earlier now appears to be going to the west. So maybe the coast is more clear than it was before, but the issue is if we advance, who knows what's going to happen to Imladris, and holding that place is more important. Unfortunately, what I actually did this turn was nothing, because this was in between sessions. I loaded a save, thinking I had already done my turn, but actually it was a save at the start of the turn. So I just hit end turn and did nothing. Well, we're Iron Manning this pretty much, so we're just going to go with this wasted turn and see what happens, because it might even be a good move. The situation after that does actually look a bit better, but that may only be because we can't really tell what's going on. The army going to the east is besieging the rebel settlement, so that's good enough because I figured by the time they're done taking that place and have taken some losses as a result, they probably won't be strong enough to take Rivendell, so maybe that's safe. As for the two other armies, well, we just can't see them, and my response is to act as if they're not here. We're just going to plow into this village. It has no walls, so we can go in for the battle right now. It was only defended by 2 units, but that becomes free because they spawn another one. Still, this is a pretty easy situation for us, because all of our range stuff can shoot at the enemy units coming out of the village one by one, and just pick up absolutely loads of kills before the fighting starts. While I've complained before about the archers not being that powerful, when we have like 8 archer units shooting at one enemy unit, the fact that a lot of the arrows just sort of bounce off the enemy is less obvious because we're hitting them so many times. What would be nice was if we could see some stun locking going on so they couldn't run at us because they were being hit by the arrows so much. Doesn't really matter. We killed them down to like 20 guys before they reached us, and then they routed quickly in melee combat. The enemy's archers followed in behind them into the melee for some reason, so that makes things easy for us. And then we just had to take out their general. This guy's somewhat resistant to arrows, but after pounding him at close range with horse archers and fighting him from the front with our melee general, we gradually kill him. We barely take any losses in the melee, so my general must be a lot better by now. He's on gold experience by the looks of things since he's nearly died so many times, so that's going to help out as well. And here we are a bit later when we've gradually worked our way through that bodyguard unit. We kill the general himself, so that might take out some enemy potential in the future if that guy was ever to be heading an actual army. And of course, we do take the settlement, but that's not that much of an advantage because it's, well, it might just be the worst settlement in the world. I was about to say it wasn't, but actually it is a pretty bad settlement. It makes us virtually no money. Our units cost about 300 to 400 to upkeep at the cheapest, so a village making us 73 is not very useful. There's no economic way to defend it, plus it has no walls, so there's no strategic way to defend it either. Really, I'm just taking it because it was there, but in retrospect I don't know if this is a good idea. Much worse of an idea than taking Zag-Kalar. So we're almost certainly not going to focus on holding this place, but what we are going to do going into the next part is face off against the big enemy armies that are hiding in the fog of war. So why don't you join me next time for some more massive battles to decide the fate of Middle-earth.